So, good morning, all the participants. I welcome you all again for today's FDP. The first speaker of the day is Dr. Subhash Agarwal. He is presently working as Head and Scientist E at ICMR National Institute of Cancer Prevention and Research, Noida. He obtained bachelor's from Delhi University and master's degree in biochemistry from Kurukshetra University. He did advanced postgraduate diploma in bioinformatics from JNU and then pursued work on anti-amoebic drug discovery during PhD as a CSIR UGC NET fellow. Dr. Agarwal has made contribution in furthering drug discovery in the area of cancer by establishing various computational tools and databases. He has published 50 international publications in Scopus Index journals and is also the reviewer of several international journals. Dr. Agarwal has received funding support from various scientific including DBT, DST, DHR, and ICMR. He is member of the National Academy of Sciences, India, and is recipient of the IUBMB Young Scientist Award, Japan, DST Young Scientist Award, DBY, IYBA, and Biosolve IT Scientific Challenge winner at Germany. So I would like to invite Dr. Agarwal to please deliver his talk for the day. Today, Sir will be talking on the role of QSAR and machine learning in drug discovery. We are really honored to have you here, sir, and thank you for accepting our invitation.
Give me a minute. I will be sharing my slide.
Sure, sir.
Is the slide visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So first, I would like to thank Dr. Meenu, professor who contacted me for this lecture, and Dr. Roma. As I can see from this particular program, it's a wonderful program that has been designed, and I find it's being a large number of speakers are there. Approximately 15 speakers are there, and they are all, I would say, accomplished personalities in their own field. And Dr. Roma has been wonderful. It has been wonderful work by her in designing such a program, which not only covers, I can see various aspects of drug discovery, docking per se, and structural biology aspects. Even NGS is covered, and machine learning. So as I can see from the program, probably the all the, I would say, participating faculties, research scholars, everybody have probably gone through some lectures on machine learning already. I think so. Dr. Sonika has already covered part of it, and Dr. Surajit Devnath has also covered. And I find that probably one more lecture by another professor tomorrow in the morning. I think so. Every day we are having a machine learning lecture. So, so probably from the perspective of the people who are present, there might be some repetition, or there might be complete repetition of the whatever I'm going to present. But I would request them to be a bit patient. And what we say, because I work in a cancer institute, and what we say here that we run different kind of awareness programs. So what I've learned from my peers in this field is that they say that if even if you can reach 1% of the population, and you can give some message to them, then your work is done. So keeping that particular thing in my mind, so I can see there are some, okay, there are some 57 participants. So around about 60 participants are already there. So what I mean to say is that there might be repetitions. There might be, you might say, overlap, but just listen to me patiently. Probably even if you can have some one thing or two things to take home and learn new things, I think so my work would be done. So I would be very happy personally in case anybody learns even a single thing out of it. And even 5% of the persons can learn, and they feel that they have learned something out of this particular lecture. That is one part. The second part is that from the perspective, I don't normally give textbook kind of lectures. So it might be theoretically a part of it I would cover, but what I'm trying to say is that whatever information I'm trying to give, and I understand this is a faculty development program. So my role as a speaker here is that in case the faculties are not aware about the field, at least they come to know the terminologies. If they are research scholars, they can know where the field is moving or probably likely to move in the future, what is presently being done by a lot of people. So all these aspects, and whatever I'm going to tell you from is from my own learning over a period of time. So I can literally tell you that in last 10 years, whatever I've learned, that's where I've put in. The effort to build these slides have gone into, it's like more of 10 years of my understanding of the subject. And also prior to I start, I should say one more thing, one more little thing, which is very, very important for the coming generation to remember now. Because there has been a big change in the last 10 years. And that is presence of YouTube, lot of material. A lot of material is present now very easily. When I started working in this field, nothing was present. Nothing was available. So it became very difficult to do research work in these fields. Just excuse me for a second. Just excuse me. Okay. So it was very difficult. But as I progressed, I find that a lot of things, a lot of information is available on YouTube, and which has made life very easy. So for me, the same learning was very difficult. But now it gives an opportunity to everybody to learn very, very quickly. And that's the advantage that this particular time period is giving. And last 2 years, there has been a significant jump because everything has become now online. So nothing is more, I could not have assumed 2 years back that sitting here, I would be addressing something like now 67 participants and who are sitting across complete India. So I could not have imagined that I would be delivering a lecture and probably I will be touching each and every part of the country. So this is a big change. So remember, whatever I'm telling you is not typical textbook, but probably my own learnings. So what we are going to talk about, we are going to talk about fundamentally some particular aspects that I would like to touch upon is what is QSR? Just a minute. Okay, the slides are visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what I'm going to cover in this lecture is what is QSR, why it is important to do QSR, And when I mean QSR, you start assuming now I'm mixing QSR with machine learning. So I'm saying both. So for my definition, QSR means machine learning and QSR. So that's the one thing that people have to take into mind, keep into consideration till end of this lecture. What are the different types of models that can be generated? Why the need arised for machine learning based QSR? The different steps that are involved fundamentally in QSR. And finally, if I have the time, I can touch upon some examples from my own studies. Okay. Now, Dr. Roma said that I'm working from in ICMR Institute, whose mandate is to work in the area of bioinformatics. So not bioinformatics, whose mandate is to work in the area of cancer. So basically, we are focused in cancer. We have different departments, cytopathology, molecular biology, epidemiology, bioinformatics, clinical oncology, population. So we have a mix of clinicians in the institute, and we have people from basic sciences. I myself being a bioinformatics person, then there are epidemiologists in the institute. So in case any of the faculties are doing any of these work and they need some help, I would recommend them that they can go to our website, which is nicpr.res.in, and contact any of these faculties, and they will be very, very helpful to you in your work. So I assume a lot of people here would be sitting from molecular biology background. We have a very big molecular biology group, large number of faculties there. You can get in touch with them. They are very helpful. Everybody here is very helpful and very keen to make collaborations. One thing that I would stress, it's my responsibility as a member of this institute to stress is that during the COVID times, this particular, if you can see here on the left-hand side, we made the high throughput laboratory for testing COVID samples. This laboratory was built within a week of 3 weeks time on the direction of the ministry. And we have a capacity, overall capacity of testing 10,000. So when there was a peak, we were testing more than 10,000 samples per day. And this institute has been serving, and that's one of the major accomplishments in last 2 years that the faculty is proud of. So since it's my duty to, and it was inaugurated by our Honorable Prime Minister, it's our duty to share this with you, and so that people can know about this facility. Okay. Now, what this particular site is telling. Okay. This particular slide, as you can see, basically is telling two parts of it. I've divided by a line, and there's an upper part to it, and there's a lower part to it. The upper part basically is showing the three major areas that I've been working over the period. The first is just basically cervical cancer research. So when I joined this institute, particular institute, this institute has its name because of the cervical cancer. So a lot of work has gone into cervical cancer. So when I started to work in this institute, I was asked that how can I contribute in the area of cervical cancer. So being in bioinformatics, I thought that how I can be helpful. So the first thing that I came up was that I generated a database which is called as CCTV. And okay, one more thing, whatever tools I'm going to discuss are freely available on the internet. So anybody can access them, can go through them, can use them. And that has been one of my major mottos. And if something is not available, people can get in touch with me. So like I was saying, that the first thing that I did was we tried to look, okay, I don't know how many people actually know that cervical cancer is a gynecological cancer. It's one of the biggest killers in India in females. Although now it is number 2 because breast cancer has become number 1. So the institute came into existence in 1970s, late 1970s. So at that time, until even early 2000, cervical cancer was the major area that our institute was giving prominence to, and still it is. So what I developed was cervical cancer gene database. What does this database provides? This database provides a large number of, to be exact, I think so 537 genes, if I remember correctly, 537 genes that it provides, which are involved in cervical cancer. That is one part of it. The other thing that we did was, based on the gene, the mRNA, we built networks. And I understand some people have also discussed about probably about networks in these lectures. So we generated networks, and from networks we try to identify certain important drug targets. One of the recent areas that we are now focusing is basically meta-analysis. So in case people know, meta-analysis is basically, you can think in that sense, is very easy senses. We have large number of data. We try to club all the data and try to make an inference out of it. So that can be said to a meta-analysis. So whenever you hear the term meta-analysis, don't get bogged down by the terminologies. So meta-analysis is nothing but large data sets. So for example, if I have a microarray data set, if somebody is working in the area of microarray and they have, let us say, 5 microarrays. So if they analyze all the 5 at a given time and come out with a single inference from those 5, then it is called as meta-analysis. So that is one part. The other major area that is very close and that I've been trying to work is plant-based drug discovery. I hope people are able to see my mouse moving. So the other area, that I've been working closely is plant-based drug discovery. So the second major question that was in our mind was that that I took up as a challenge, and I'm still working towards it, that how do we promote traditional drug discovery? How do we really promote? I'm not saying that I'm going to make a drug out of it, but how do we make sure that in the area that I'm working, how I can be useful to make sure that I generate some kind of platforms, some kind of tools using the technology that I've learned or I'm still learning, in order for the experimentalists, for researchers, for students to use them and see that they can utilize these resources. So the first question that we asked was that which are the molecules, which are the plant-based molecules which are known to be anti-cancer. So that was the first thing that we asked. Now, at that time when I started this particular work in 2011. So I should state that, and I completed this by 2013. So I'm telling you partly about 2011. So when we started this work, and still people come up and say that जी books में knowledge है, हमारी बहुत सारी books हैं library में, उनमें पता है जी, और उनमें लिखा गया है कि बहुत सारे molecules हैं. I said fine. Now I'm a bioinformatics person, and if I think as a researcher, how do I get this data? Is it in a form that computer people or any bioinformatics people would like? The answer was no, it was not. So what we developed at the first instance itself is, this is an acronym for Natural Product Activity Cancer Target Relationship, Natural Product Anti-Cancer Target Database. So you can just search the term NPACT and you will get this. So in this, we provided the information at various levels. I will not be going into depth, but I'm trying to tell you what is available. And this is very important because a lot of people are not even aware of the lot of tools that are freely available and can be used. So we generated NPACT. It is a resource where we have known anti-cancer natural product, especially from plants, having activity against A, in vitro cell line, B, in vivo activities, C, admit properties, D, drug likeliness. So you can check against the drugs that you can do a similarity search and find that whether this particular molecule is having activity is similar to drug or not. So a lot of information is present, and this is one of the databases that I myself is thankful to God for giving me an opportunity to create this kind of a database. It's been highly used and it's freely available. Now, the second part of it. So the first question that I asked was, is there any resource available for natural products which is available and which is having anti-cancer activity? The answer was no, and we created it. Once I created this kind of a resource, people asked me second question. They asked me, fine, you have created a resource which is telling me information about the known molecules. Now, what happens if I have a known molecule, but its anti-cancer activity is not known? What do we do then? So we developed NPRED, as the name suggests, and this particular thing is based on QSR and machine learning. And that's why I'm trying to tell you all this. So in order to answer a simple fundamental question, that can we predict the activity of a known molecule with unknown activity, what we can do? So we designed NPRED. I will go forward on this and probably tell you that how we used machine learning theoretically a bit and QSR techniques to design such a system. The third part of it was, when I said that I'm not literally looking at developing drugs, there was a reason behind it. Fundamentally, most of the drugs that have been designed till date are not, it's not like people assume and think that we get a natural product and it becomes a drug. No, most of the times, no, it doesn't happen. It's only in few cases it has happened. And that's, we are lucky as a humanity, we are lucky. But that doesn't happen. What generally happens is we get a natural product molecule which shows good activity against particular drug targets, and therefore that is used as the scaffold in order to design new set of synthetic compounds. 90% of the instances it has been shown that natural products do not obey the admit properties. Therefore, the third level of it, or the third part of it, what we did was we developed two different databases again, which were called as ADMET-CAN and ADMET-BIS. So ADMET-CAN provides the ADMET properties for known anti-cancer molecules. So I think so, if I remember again, approximately 3,000 molecules were processed, and out of which these were processed, and then we got certain molecules out of that which passed through, if I 1444, if to be exact, which have known anti-cancer activities. And then we developed another database which is ADMET-BIS, which we have termed. It's basically the BRICS countries. So the BRICS countries that are involved, so they have also developed certain databases. We took their databases and we processed them using some fundamental ADMET properties and designed a protocol and ultimately published it as a ADMET-BIS database. Okay, now, since you have got certain idea about this, I would, the third one. Now, I will just be, it's like, I've given you here NPET and NPET. Now here, the other area that is of major focus in my lab and over the period I've been trying to work is on EGFR. EGFR is a clinically and therapeutically very important drug target. I don't know how many people know, but in case people do have lung cancer, and even in that there is a category which is called as NSCLC, then doctors, the treating doctors, use drugs which are targeting this particular protein, which is called as epidermal growth factor receptor. Keeping the same fundamentals in background, which are what I have told right now, here also, we designed a database which is called as EGFR INDV, and it has something like 4,500 molecules. Just a minute, please. Sorry for some disturbances in between, but okay. So we developed EGFR INDB, which is again a database of more than 4,000 molecules, and it is specific to EGFR. So it has again all the levels of biological activity and all that stuff. People can go through and visit and have a look at this database. What's important, why I'm stressing on this is, now you can see a lot of threads here. So again, using machine learning and QSR based techniques, I've been able to design a lot of tools: EGFR PRED, NT-EGFR, EGFR IsoPRED, and TMR. They all have different functionalities. I'm not going to go into their details because that's not the mandate of this particular program. But what came out of this exercise is these. That's what the message is. And I'm still expanding these. There's a lot of scope. As I said, one of my motto from this lecture is that what is the trending thing? How do we utilize this? The trending thing is people say AI and ML, but although there are slides in future, but I will in just we go, but it's not something new. Yes, people are talking about it now, but people fundamentally have been doing this for last 20 years. So those who wish to go in this line, they can pursue this, but they will need to be dedicated, have certain things in their mind, and accordingly work. Okay. So, like I said, the slide is divided into two parts. The first part I've covered. The second part, simple. As a bioinformatics person, what did I do? People ask a lot of times, I don't know how many bioinformatics people are sitting, but this is a message for bioinformatics people. They feel that they in themselves cannot, they are not complete. But I would like to tell them, even if there are in this particular meeting 5, 10 people or 2 people, they're complete in themselves. So what I did was I did simple things. Database development. You have heard about machine learning. I've said I've been using this. Network biology, which comes here. I'm not going to go. I've done docking and dynamics. All this has been converted in the form of one way or other. I've tried to convert them into applications. This is very, very important for bioinformatics people to remember, that they should try to convert whatever they are trying to make. Please try to convert it into a product in the form of application, so that it's available to others, and then its utility will get enhanced. Okay, I will sum this up. These are the different tools that I've developed, which I've talked in the previous slide. That's it. Okay, one of the tools that I'm not going to talk about is volatile organic compounds. This is something different than the 3 areas that I have touched upon. But again, I have developed something which is volatile organic compounds in databases. Okay. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but just for summarizing. Rather, we should skip this, because I'm hoping that most of the faculties have already talked about this, that we have 3 different phases: research, clinical, applied phase. Basically the take home is it takes a lot of time to do experimental research, and therefore we should have ways which bioinformatics provides of reducing the time as well as cost. That's the only take home message from this particular slide. So, okay, how can we do that? Now, the first and the foremost thing, that if I'm showing symptoms and it's the first time, for example, in terms of COVID, so there is a disease, this is a new disease. The first thing that we are supposed to do, people are doing sequencing, fine. After sequencing, what will happen? We are supposed to identify the drug targets. So the first thing that people are supposed to do is drug target identification. Fine. How can we do it? Through bioinformatics. I don't know how many people have heard here comparative genomics in terms of bioinformatics. Have people heard? Can they respond to it? Okay. So let us assume that people have heard about comparative genomics. So what we do, it's a subtractive technique. It's as simple as that. So what people normally do is take two genomes, right? And from the two genomes, they, for example, they take a parasite and the host, right? And they just compare their genomes, and from there they try to tell you what is unique. And that it becomes a drug target. So from the drug target, even if, let us say I have a drug target now available with me, as a bioinformatics, what I can do? Either I can run to a experimentalist who will tell me now I will crystallize this. So this basically is a 3D structure of some particular protein. So either he can crystallize this protein. For this, he will definitely take a lot of time, because first it has to be isolated and then it has to be crystallized. So what as a bioinformatics person I will do? I will do homology modeling. But I can do this only when already there is a similar structure available in the PDB database. So as soon as I have a similar structure available in the PDB database, I will do homology modeling, right? And get a structure in hand. In case they are not there, then probably I will do fold recognition or thread exercises. That's a bit higher, because when the similarity goes, we have to follow those methods. But remember, as a fundamental principle, that the first thing we'll do is modeling. We'll prepare a structure. So I have got the structure in hand now. Excellent. Now, why I'm telling this slide is, since I thought that this is a drug discovery forum, it's important to understand that how bioinformatics operate for the drug discovery in a very simple terms. So from here, I can now run to a chemist. ठीक है, मुझे active site भी पता लगी. I will say, people must have heard CAST-P and all this. So I do find out this active site. So what do I do now? I run to a chemist basically. He can now synthesize a large number of molecules. Firstly, he will take a lot of time in synthesizing these molecules. What as a bioinformatics person I can do? What I will do, just to complete this, he will synthesize first, and then he will run to a biologist who will say that मैं cell line में test करता हूँ. In the whole process, it will take at least a year or two, even if we have the best of the labs. So what as a bioinformatics person I will do? I will go to probably to Zinc. I think so people must have heard here Zinc database. I will go to Zinc. I will download quickly all the molecules that are present and dock my molecule. So when I'm docking, one thing which students most of the times have come up to me and said, and therefore I'm trying to put this as, sir, what is the difference between docking and virtual screen? No difference. When we dock one molecule, when we basically dock one molecule, it is called as docking. When we dock many compounds, it is called as virtual screen. Again, I am saying, don't get bogged down by the terminologies. So what will we do? We'll dock millions of compounds, and I will have a list of top 10 compounds suddenly. So the whole process of 2 years, probably I will convert in 2 months time. So now I have done docking also. Okay, wonderful. So I've done virtual screening. I've done docking. Now, how do I test what its activity is? Right? So experimentalist would say you have to do an enzymatic assay. I would say I've done my molecular docking. So it may not be probably as good at this enzymatic assay as the experimentalist would say, and I agree. But I've done molecular docking, and which is much faster. So it's good. So in order to be more confident that the false positives are not here, I will do a dynamics. So dynamics, basically what we are doing, we are keeping as if the molecule and the protein as if it is in the biological system. So we create basically a box, and we put these two things. So solvent is there, and we run, basically we give it temperature and we run, basically. We shake it basically. And from dynamics, we try to identify, is it stable in the active site or not? That's what we try to do. Okay. So there is no need for me to do enzymatic assay. Now, I see. Okay, fine. Then in case, even if a molecule has come, is it the best molecule? It might not be. So what do? I do optimization of this. So again, I can run back to a chemist and ask, please do it, sir. Or we can generate a QSR model. Because what a QSR model does, basically QSR model helps us to predict the activity of unknown molecules. That's what I've said earlier. And then we can take it to clinical, and also there also, I don't want to stress on that, but there also we have in silico technologies, and probably one of the lectures I remember had covered PKSM. So it's a very good server. People should use it. I've used it personally and I like it. Okay. So broadly, these slides I will probably not take too much time. So we all know computer aided drug design. There are two types, structure and ligand. Very simply, if the structure is available, the 3D structure of the protein is available, then it's called structure based drug design. If the 3D structure is not available, the ligands are only available. Ligands are available. And we know that if these ligands are showing activity, so what we have two things here. We have ligands and we have their known biological activity. We don't know where they are going and acting, which receptor they are binding to, probably. We don't know that information. Even if we lack that information, let us say for a minute. So we know that the ligand is present and it shows good biological activity. If these two things are present, then we go towards ligand based techniques. So I'm not touching too much about structure based this, because QSR is more of a ligand based technique. So therefore, in the absence of 3D information of the structure, that means I'm not going to utilize the information, even if it is present. Let us say if it is present, I'm not going to utilize the information of the protein 3D structure. What I'm going to utilize is, just remember two things, basic fundamental two things, is ligands and their biological activity. That's it. Although there are other techniques also, pharmacophore modeling and similarity search, but that's not what we are covering right now. So as I've said, very simple. What do you need? Two things. We need compounds. We need their biological activity. If we have, what will happen? We can generate a QSR model. Simple. If we have these two things available with us, when I say compounds, it means we have the structure of the compounds available with us and their known biological activity. We can develop a QSR model. What will it do? I will take now a molecule for which a biological activity is not known and try to predict, using this particular model, what is my biological activity, right? That's what QSR does. Okay. Okay, one more thing. If people want to work in the area of QSR, definitely they will have to learn a bit of statistics. That will be very, very useful. Those who are good in statistics have an upper hand as compared to others in this field. So structure activity relationship is an approach to find quantitative, what it tries to do. What is QSR? Quantitative structure activity relationship. So it's trying to quantify the relationship between the structure and activity. And this quantification is called as QSR, development of QSR model. Okay, the basic assumption of QSR, the basic assumption of a fundamental QSR is that structurally related molecules possess similar biological activities. So what it means simply that when we try to develop a QSR model, we try to take similar molecules. That means if, let us say, if I have a benzene, one is benzene, let us say this is benzene, then the second is, let us say, phenol some, right? So this is this. Then there can be something which is CH3 here. So this becomes related. Why it becomes related? Because this core is common to them. So what we try to do? What we try to do is try to take common molecules. Okay. Now, what this says, even if people are not have to understand the mathematics, I will not try to tell them the mathematics of it, but I will try to tell them what fundamentally it is. So please understand the concept rather than going into too much into statistics. So if you go through the books, they will say biological activity equal to function of x. Okay, now people know straight line equation, y equal to mx. So basically, why we try to build what we try to build. Y is my biological activity, and x is my basically some kind of a structural properties. I'm going to talk about it, the descriptors. So what we do, we have the activity. ये तो आसान है कि activity हमारे पास है, IC50 हमें पता है. But how do we get this? The structural. For this, we compute something called, in today's date, molecular descriptors. That's what we do, right? So we compute, and then we try to build the relationship between this. So y equal to mx. Please remember this. So this particular function we try to build between this, and this is a straight line equation. So we are trying to build a linear relationship between y, which is my activity, which is a dependent variable, and this is my independent variable. Just remember these 2 points. For example, now if I know that my x is 1, just 1, 5, 10, 20, 40, for example, it moves this way. Then how does my biological activity moves? If I know this data, 2, 10, 20, 40, 80. It is very clear from this example that this particular equation will convert, this particular information will get converted into this equation, because it is just the double of this, right? So this becomes this equation. So if I tell you, if this is 80, what it would be? Would anybody like to just say in the chat box? Why? What will be y? I will just give you 10 seconds. And if nobody answers, then probably I will go ahead.
Sir, actually, everyone is on mute mode.
Okay.
What we are doing is because sometimes what happens now, many of the
that's why I said probably I said we can write in chat box. Okay, fine. That's fine. That will be 160. Okay. So it will be 160. Okay. Very good. Somebody has written. So you have learned basically, I would say, building QSR model. That's what QSR model does. Simple. Great. Okay. Now, as I said, this slide just I'm showing in order to stress that this is not something new. The basic major paper came in what year 1964 by Hans and Fujita. So QSR field is there from last 60 years around. Okay, next. Okay. Probably I've given this message to you. Why should we do QSR? as I've said, to predict the activity of unknown molecules. So I don't want to go to as a bioinformatics person, I don't want to go to lab. I have some chemist has designed some molecules. They have tested their activity. I know they are acting against, let us say, one target, or they are having one kind of activity. They are similar in nature. So what I do a QSR model. And why I do it? Because I want to design new molecules. Everybody in this forum would have heard the term NCs. So everybody would like to design one NC. This is what I would also like. But I don't design NC. I design my programs so that others can design NCs for them. So basically, predict activity. This I have said is as an example that in case, again, I'm stressing on that if I have a chemist friend, okay, I will tell him to make 1,000 compounds first, then ask my biological friend to do a testing. And then only I will get something, and then I will get probably 5 molecules. I'm a bioinformatics person. I'm always in haste. I'm hurry in a life, right? So I will build a QSR model and I will give to him a model. Probably in a day, it will tell me the answer. That's what I would do. So this is what. So the thing which was supposed to take probably a year, and I had to go to 10 different people for that, I've done it. The building is difficult, remember. Don't think that the building will take one day. Right? So if I have a QSR model, I can do prediction quickly. That's the point I'm trying to stress. So definitely it's fast and efficient. Okay. The growth. Again, I'm stressing. Why I'm showing this slide? People think that QSR and all this are new field. No, this is not new. Yes, definitely there's a peak somewhere here. After 2015, because computers have evolved, people have evolved, all are in a hurry now. Everybody wants to do bioinformatics nowadays. So they want to design molecules. They want to be rich quickly and design a drug, right? So, and if I see from here per se, because I'm interested in cancer research, my institute says I have to work in cancer, right? What happens in the area of cancer? In the area of cancer also the same trend is there. So basically this is telling the trend. Like I said, one of the message that I want to give is trend. The trend is this field is coming. It's already towards its peak, I think. Okay. Do not worry about these. Again, I am saying jargons too much. Just understand the concept. It will be easy. As I've said, descriptors. Forget in this slide what is written. 1D means if I am having 1D descriptors, then it's called 1D QSR. If I am having 2D descriptors, it is called 2D QSR. If I am having 3D descriptors, it is called as 3D QSR. 3D कब आएगा? जब ज्योमेट्री निकालोगे तब आएगा, तो ज्योमेट्रिकल हो गया. That's as simple as that. The second type of, so that's why I've said dimensionality of the descriptors ke basis पर. Again, I'm stressing one point which I said in the starting of this lecture is this is not typical textbook teaching class. It's more of an experience transfer class. Think as that, right? So I'm going to tell what I have learned. The second thing is depending on the biological activity. If the biological activity of all the molecules is, I know, let us say 50 molecules with their toxicity. I know the toxicity of 50 molecules. And I want to predict toxicity of a new molecule. Then what will I build? Then it is called quantitative structure toxicity relationship. So then it becomes QSTR. Now, similarly, if it has, I have metabolism data. It's just, I'm changing my biological activity data. So if I have metabolism information, then it is called as PSMR. If I have pharmacokinetics data, then it is called as QSPR. And if it's binding affinity data, then it's called as QSBR. Okay. Now, depending what I've written in this, depending on the biological activity, IC50, ED50, whether it is continuous or categorical. Just remember that you have to just see the terminology. उसका इंग्लिश में आप मतलब निकालो, आपको सब कुछ समझ में आ जाएगा. This is my one fundamental which I give each of my students, because this is how I understood biology myself. Otherwise, biology always was very difficult to me, and it was like everybody used to say, it's a lot of ratification. It's never a ratification. Just understand the English terminologies and you will understand biology. So what is continuous? So if I have to give you an example, let us say my lowest molecule, I will be talking about this. Let us say I have 50 molecules, like I said, and their range is from 0.5 to 50. And in between there are molecules with biological activity. Let us say micromolar में activity known है 10, 20, 30, let us say 40, something like that. It's not, yeah, or 45. So this is a continuous data, right? So if this is a continuous data, what do I normally do with this continuous data? What I do is I build a regression based model. So y equal to mx plus c. अभी c को भूल जाओ. y equal to mx वाली इक्वेशन को यूज करके हम एक मॉडल बनाते हैं, स्ट्रेट लाइन इक्वेशन वाली. बस इतना याद रखना. दूसरा होता है कैटेगोरिकल. यानी कैटेगोरिकल का मतलब क्या था? हाँ या ना, है या नहीं, क्या वो अच्छी एक्टिविटी दिखाता है या नहीं दिखाता है, क्या वो एक्टिव है या कम एक्टिव है. So if we have these kind of data, then we have something called, this becomes categorical in nature. Category है, it's binary data, 0 1 की form, right? So then we say we use classification based learning, which is called as ML based QSR technology, let us say. Okay, like I said in the previous slide, these are few examples. So I have a molecule, और मैंने कहा था आपको जब y equal to mx में बता रहा था, तो मॉलिक्यूल को हम डिस्क्रिप्टर के फॉर्म में कन्वर्ट करते हैं, क्योंकि कंप्यूटर कैसे समझेगा? कंप्यूटर को तो ये स्ट्रक्चर समझ नहीं आएगा. कंप्यूटर में मतलब आई एम अज्यूमिंग पीपल नो व्हाट इज SDF mol2 फॉर्मेट. उसको मैं SDF mol2 दे दूंगा तो उसको ये भाषा समझ नहीं आएगी. उसको मुझे बताना पड़ेगा कुछ और जो वो समझ सके. तो व्हाट आई डू इज I convert this into some kind of a descriptors. These are continuous descriptors. अब मैंने यहाँ पे ये कुछ दिखाया है. अगर हम continuous descriptors यूज करेंगे, इस स्लाइड से क्या कहना है और क्या सीखना है सर? If we use continuous descriptors, then the prediction will be certain values. We are using or we are generating a regression based model, and the prediction will be a value. Fine. Again, here, this is the example of classification based method. I have said I will be explaining a bit here. We generate some kind of molecular fingerprints. यहाँ पे आप देखोगे कि वैल्यूज हैं. यहाँ पे क्या है? 0 1. बाइनरी डेटा है, ये सब बाइनरी डेटा है. तो हमने इस मॉलिक्यूल को बेसिकली बाइनरी फॉर्म में कन्वर्ट कर दिया. ठीक है ना? कह दिया कुछ है कुछ नहीं है, कुछ है कुछ है कुछ नहीं है. इस तरह से हमने उसको कन्वर्ट कर दिया. What will be the prediction? The prediction will be active or inactive. No more the values are coming. और मैंने कौन सा मेथड यूज करा बिल्ड करने के लिए मॉडल? मैंने कहा मैंने मशीन लर्निंग यूज करी, या मशीन लर्निंग वर्ड नहीं भी यूज करना, मैंने क्लासिफिकेशन यूज करा. तो मैंने क्लासिफिकेशन बेस्ड सिस्टम यूज करा अपने सिस्टम को, अपने बायोलॉजिकल एक्टिविटी को सेग्रीगेट करने. What is the basic difference now? People have gone through this lecture a lot. I feel मतलब बहुत सारे डॉकिंग के लेक्चर हो. So what is the difference between computation, जनरल कंप्यूटेशन एंड ML बेस्ड? हम इसको बहुत सिंपल से एग्जांपल से समझने की कोशिश करेंगे. लेट अस से मुझे चाय बनानी, ठीक है. इनपुट डेटा में मैंने लेट अस से मेरा एक ब्रदर है और उसको मुझे चाय बनाना सिखाना. अब मैंने क्या करा, मैंने चाय पत्ती ले ली, मैंने टी ले ली, दूध ले लिया, मिल्क ले लिया, वाटर ले लिया, शुगर ले ली, ठीक है. ये सब मेरे इनपुट हो. ओके, नाउ व्हाट डज दिस रिप्रेजेंट? अ प्रोग्राम, लेट अस से. देन आई स्टार्ट गिविंग हिम अ सेट ऑफ इंस्ट्रक्शंस कि भाई आप ऐसा करो, ये गैस है, ये आप अज्यूम कर लीजिए ये गैस है. गैस पे आप पहले पतीला रखो. मैंने उसको लिख के इंस्ट्रक्शन सारी दे दी. गैस पे पतीला रखो, उसमें पानी डालो, 1 कप चाय बनाने में आधा कप पानी डालो, फिर उसको थोड़ा उबालो, उसमें अदरक डालो, ठीक है ना. फिर उसमें आप चाय पत्ती डाल दो, फिर चीनी डाल दो टेस्ट के हिसाब से. मैंने बता दिया हाफ स्पून ये डाल दो, हाफ स्पून वो डाल दो. जैसे आपका कुकरी क्लासेस में होता है ना, दिखाते हैं सिखाने के लिए, तो मैंने उसको सारा कुछ बता दिया. फिर उबालो, फिर छानो, ये करको, और छानने के लिए जो यूटेंसिल्स चाहिए, कप चाहिए, सारा कुछ मटेरियल. तो बेसिकली मैंने उसको सब कुछ दे दिया और सारे इंस्ट्रक्शन दे दिए. यानी मैंने सारा मटेरियल दे दिया, मैंने एक पेपर पे लिख के उसको सारा इंस्ट्रक्शन दे दिया. तो इंस्ट्रक्शन सेट ये है मेरा. इनपुट डेटा मेरा बेसिकली सारा आइटम्स है, जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट्स हैं आपके वो भी दे दिए. ये मेरी बेसिकली एक तरह से आप समझिए गैस है जिसपे वो बनेगी चाय. अल्टीमेटली नतीजा क्या होगा, वो मुझे चाय बना के देगा. ओके, सो सिंस ही हैड all the input data, all the instructions to do the work, he has been able to generate a cup of tea. On the other hand, I have another brother. अब उसको भी चाय बनानी सिखानी है मुझे, पर मैं सेम मेथोडोलॉजी नहीं ले रहा. मैं क्या कर रहा हूं, मैंने उसको ये जो चाय बनी थी ना, उसको कहा बेटा ये चाय पी लो. उसने वो चाय पी ली. उसकी शक्ल देख लो, यानी टेक्सचर देख लो, कलर देख लो, ठीक है, स्वीटनेस देख लो, कितनी गर्म बनी है ये देख लो, ये सब चीजें देख लो. तो मैंने उसको वो चाय जो है वो चाय चखवा दी उसको. ठीक है जी, मैंने आई मेड हिम ड्रिंक दिस टाइम. और साथ साथ जो मैंने ऊपर आपको बताया, मैंने सारा का सारा इनपुट डेटा भी उसको दे दिया. जो मटेरियल मैंने इस पर्सन को दिया था, इस ब्रदर को दिया था, वो सारा इसको दे दिया. उसको गैस भी दे दी, ये भी दे दी. अब मैं शांति से बैठी, तो वो अब उसको कम तुम चाय बना के ला, तो वो क्या करेगा, ही विल लर्न ऑन हिज ओन. वो कभी कुछ डालेगा, कभी कुछ डालेगा, परमुटेशन कॉम्बिनेशन, बहुत सारे परमुटेशन कॉम्बिनेशन करेगा. एंड फाइनली expectation is if he keeps on repeating that particular exercise for many days, probably one day he will learn it. He will learn how to make this particular cup of tea. तो ये आउटपुट में उसकी लर्निंग आ गई, यानी मेरा उसको चाय बनाना आ गया. ओके, नाउ उसको चाय बनाना आ गया. अब इसको हम सिंपल एक एग्जाम्पल से देखते हैं. उसके बाद अब चाय बनाना आ गया तो वो क्या कर सकता है. तो अगर उसको अब चाय बनाना आता है, ठीक है, उसके पास सारे इंग्रेडिएंट्स हैं, तो आउटपुट क्या आएगा, चाय बना के दे देगा मुझे अब, ठीक है ना. सो व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू टेल यू फ्रॉम दिस एग्जांपल, जनरली कंप्यूटेशन, क्योंकि सबने डॉकिंग करी होगी तो मैं डॉकिंग के हिसाब से प्रोस्पेक्ट से बताता हूँ. तो हमने क्या लिया, हमने प्रोटीन लिया, लाइगेंड लिया जिसमें डॉक करना है, और उसको एक ऑटोडॉक नाम का एक प्रोग्राम होगा जो सबने सुन रखा होगा, और दे दिया. उसको कहा कि आप फिट करके ला दो. अब यहाँ पे उसमें और क्या क्या चीजें हमने बताई, जैसे उसको बताई ग्रिड डेफिनेशन बताई, एक्टिव साइड बताया, बहुत कुछ बताया उसको सब कुछ बताया. नतीजा क्या होगा, लेट अस कम टू नतीजा. आउटपुट होएगा, वो मेरे को बताता है, लोगों ने आपको पढ़ाया होगा कि वो बताएगा कि ये पोज आई, और इस पोज के कॉरस्पॉन्डिंग एक स्कोर आया जिसको हम बाइंडिंग एफिनिटी भी कह सकते हैं लेटर से, तो वो आपको बताया उसने नतीजे। तो आपने डॉकिंग प्रोग्राम लिया और इनपुट में आपने स्ट्रक्चर लिया, लाइगेंड लिया और उससे बेस पे आया। यहां मैं क्या करूंगा, जो मैंने कहा, दो बातें याद रखिए, सिर्फ और सिर्फ दो बातें। बाइंडिंग एफिनिटी का मतलब है यहाँ पे बायोलॉजिकल एक्टिविटी। मैंने बायोलॉजिकल एक्टिविटी ली और इनपुट डेटा सेट में अपना लाइगेंड लिया, और ये सब कुछ मैंने अपने y = mx की तरह से आप समझ लो उसको दे दिया, और उसने एक मॉडल जनरेट करके दे दिया। सो इट हैज बीन एबल टू जनरेट अ मशीन लर्निंग मॉडल बाय सेल्फ लर्निंग फ्रॉम दिस पर्टिकुलर two ingredients that I have given. So this becomes an ML model. अब इस ML मॉडल का यूज क्या है, मैंने पहले भी बताया आपको। इस ML मॉडल का इस्तेमाल यही है कि ये अगर अब मैं इसको लाके, इसीलिए मैंने यहाँ पे वर्ड लिखा है न्यू लाइगेंड, अगर अब मैं लाके एक अननोन लाइगेंड दे देता हूँ जिसके बारे में मुझे, जिसकी बायोलॉजिकल एक्टिविटी नहीं पता, तो ये ML मॉडल आएगा उस नए स्ट्रक्चर को, लेगा डिस्क्रिप्टर में कन्वर्ट करने के बाद, और अल्टीमेटली मुझे बताएगा उसकी नई एक्टिविटी, राइट। सो दिस इज द बेसिक डिफरेंस व्हेन पीपल से जनरल कंप्यूटेशन वर्सेस द ML प्रोग्राम, राइट। ओके, सम बेसिक थिंग्स that people have to remember when doing QSR. और ये ट्रेडिशनल QSR, ट्रेडिशनल बेस्ड QSR में क्या होता था, जैसे मैंने आपको कहा स्ट्रक्चरली सिमिलर मॉलिक्यूल्स चाहिए होते हैं, तो क्योंकि स्ट्रक्चरली सिमिलर मॉलिक्यूल्स चाहिए होते हैं तो हमारे पास स्ट्रक्चरली सिमिलर मॉलिक्यूल्स बहुत ज्यादा नहीं होते। स्ट्रक्चरली सिमिलर मॉलिक्यूल्स तो हो सकते हैं, बट स्ट्रक्चरली सिमिलर मॉलिक्यूल्स विद बायोलॉजिकल एक्टिविटी, क्योंकि मेरे को दो लोगों की हेल्प लेनी पड़ी है, मेरे को एक केमिस्ट की हेल्प लेनी पड़ी है और एक बायोलॉजिस्ट की हेल्प लेनी पड़ी है, और बहुत टाइम लगा है। केमिस्ट को 30 कंपाउंड, अगर इसमें इस कैटेगरी में कोई केमिस्ट है तो ही कैन टेल यू 30 कंपाउंड्स बनाने में उसको कितना साल लग जाएगा, ठीक है ना। और अगर कोई बायोलॉजिस्ट है जिसने सेल लाइन पे टेस्टिंग कर रखी हो, वो बताएगा, बायोलॉजिस्ट, यहाँ सारे बायोलॉजिस्ट ही होंगे, बायोटेक में कितना टाइम लग जाएगा सेल लाइन ऐसे करके एक्टिविटी निकालने में, IC50, तो बहुत टाइम लगता है। तो बेसिकली QSR के लिए हम कहते हैं मिनिमम, बट ये मिनिमम है। आई कैन ऑल्सो हैव 100 200, ठीक है ना। तो जैसे मैंने कहा, एक तो है कितने चाहिए, दूसरा कैसे होने चाहिए, सिमिलर होने चाहिए। इसका आंसर बहुत सिंपल है, सिमिलर होने चाहिए। सिमिलर का मैंने एग्जांपल समझाने की कोशिश करी है, जैसे बेंजीन, फिनॉल, यानी बेसिक कोड जो है उसका सेम है, बट उसके आसपास जो है रिंग्स चेंज हो रही है, यानी सब्स्टिट्यूशंस हो रही हैं आसपास। थर्ड पॉइंट, मेजर पॉइंट इज उनकी जो एक्टिविटी डिटरमाइन करी हुई होनी चाहिए वो सेम तरीके से करी होनी चाहिए। यानी मान लीजिए मैं दो बायोलॉजिस्ट फ्रेंड को पकड़ लेता हूं जल्दी के चक्कर में, और एक बायोलॉजिस्ट फ्रेंड को कहता हूं एमटीटी ऐसे कर लो, एक दूसरे को कहता हूं लेट अस से फ्रेट ऐसे। अब एक ने जो एक्टिविटी निकाली कुछ कंपाउंड्स की निकाली आपकी एंटिटी से, और एक ने लेट अस से कोई दूसरे से निकाली, ठीक है। अब ये आप कंपाउंड्स नहीं ले सकते और QSR डेवलप नहीं कर सकते, ये दोनों के दोनों सेम एसे से आने चाहिए, तभी हम QSR डेवलप कर सकते हैं। चौथा मेजर इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट, वेरी क्रिटिकल, लोग इसका ख्याल बिल्कुल नहीं रखते हैं। बायोलॉजिकल एक्टिविटी कवरेज शुड बी मोर देन 10⁻³ इस बात का इस एग्जाम्पल से आप समझिए, बहुत सिंपल है, बट ये ध्यान में रखना बहुत जरूरी है। मैंने कहा मिनिमम 10⁻³, यानी अगर मेरा लीस्ट कंपाउंड की एक्टिविटी, मतलब सबसे कम एक्टिविटी, बायोलॉजिकल एक्टिविटी 1 माइक्रोमोलर है, तो मेरे उस लेटर से 30 कंपाउंड के अंदर जो मैक्सिमम वाला होगा उसकी बायोलॉजिकल एक्टिविटी 1000 भी होगी। बट सिर्फ इतना ही नहीं होगा, कुछ कंपाउंड इस रेंज में होंगे, कुछ कंपाउंड इस रेंज में होंगे, और कुछ कंपाउंड इस रेंज में होंगे। सिर्फ यही नहीं कि आपका पता लगा मिनिमम वाला या ये इसको कह लीजिए मैक्सिमम वाला इधर है, मिनिमम वाला इधर है, और बीच में सारा का सारा डेटा आपका जो है 30 के 30 कंपाउंड यही लाई कर रहा है। दिस इज नॉट द वे टू डेवलप अ QSR मॉडल. इट हैज टू कवर द इंटायर रेंज. ये बात बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। और अगर आपके डेटा में 10⁻³ से ज्यादा हो तो सोने पे सुहागा, बहुत अच्छा, यही होना चाहिए। जितनी ज्यादा, इसको हम कहते हैं कवरेज, अगर हमारे QSR मॉडल की बहुत बड़ी कवरेज हो तो ये बहुत अच्छा है, तो कवरेज होनी चाहिए उसकी। ओके, वन सिंपल थिंग फ्रॉम दिस, अगेन आई एम सेइंग दिस इज नॉट टेक्स्ट बुक लेक्चर, दिस इज नॉलेज ट्रांसफर लेक्चर फ्रॉम माय ओन एक्सपीरियंसेस। इसी बात को मैं बार बार रिपीट कर, नीड फॉर मशीन लर्निंग बेस्ड QSR। जब मैं इस तरह का QSR करता हूं तो मुझे कुछ परेशानी आती, जैसे मिनिमम 30 कंपाउंड होते हैं, कंपाउंड जो चाहिए सेम होने चाहिए, कंपाउंड जो है एक ही एसए से आने चाहिए, 3 मेजर पॉइंट ऊपर वाले जो लिखे, ये तीनों के तीनों पॉइंट हम इग्नोर कर सकते हैं अगर हम, if we do machine learning based QSR, we can ignore these 3 above points. This is what is written in these slides. In order to perform QSR analysis, and when I say QSR, ML based QSR, any series of compounds can be taken. अगर आप वो MTT से आए हैं, FRET से आए हैं, आप ले सकते हैं, तब भी उसमें कुछ considerations हैं, बट आप ले सकते हैं। Series, I'm sorry, it means that scaffold, different scaffolds have been taken into consideration. The second is biological activity, यानी different assay से आई हैं तो हम ले सकते हैं। मैंने लिखा है फिर कवरेज, तो कवरेज तो हमें लेनी है, ये तो गारंटेड है कवरेज। तो अब इसमें फर्क क्या आता है, एक एडवांटेज इसमें ये आता है कि हम कहीं वी कैन टेक मेनी हंड्रेड्स ऑफ, इसके कारण मैं इसका सिर्फ एक सिंपल एक पॉइंट मैंने नीचे नोट में लिखा हुआ है, द क्वालिटी ऑफ द मॉडल डिपेंड्स अपॉन द क्वालिटी ऑफ एक्सपेरिमेंटल डेटा सेट यूज्ड फॉर डेवलपिंग मॉडल। अगर यहाँ पे लोगों ने गीगो वर्ड जरूर सुना होगा, गार्बेज इन गार्बेज आउट। तो अगर आप, जो मैं बात कहना चाह रहा था 10⁻³ फोल्ड पे, आप उसको कूड़ा करकट दे रहे हैं तो वो कूड़ा करकट ही बनाएगा। आपके घर में एक गाय है, यू हैव अ काउ इन हाउस, इफ यू डोंट give her good food, you cannot expect good milk out of that cow, so you have to give her good food. That's a basic fundamental, otherwise gigo. Okay, let me tell you the same thing but practical example. If I go for by traditional QSR approach, I have different scaffolds here. These are all different scaffolds, and let us say these different scaffolds have these many compounds in it, right? And these compounds, let us say they have been identified using, let us say, these different biological assays. What will happen in result? Very simple, I will generate so many models. So if I go by my previous slide, एक दो पहले ऊपर वाली जो स्लाइड थी, अगर मैं उसके हिसाब से जाऊंगा तो मैंने ये कुछ एग्जांपल दिखाने की कोशिश करूंगा, मैं कम से कम 15, 20, 40 मॉडल बना दूंगा, बट I can use machine learning based QSR. What will happen? I will club all these compounds and generate a single model. एक बात याद रखने की है, ये मॉडल आपको बताएंगे वैल्यूज, ये बताएगा कि ये एक्टिव है या नहीं है। तो ये बात ध्यान रखने की, ये क्लासिफाई करता है, वैल्यू नहीं बताता, ये वैल्यू बताता है। तो इसके अपनी जगह एडवांटेजेस है, इसके अपने एडवांटेजेस है। तो हम कई बारी मिक्स्ड मॉडल्स भी बनाते हैं। ओके, एक एग्जांपल मैंने ऊपर दिया था अपनी शायद फर्स्ट या सेकंड स्लाइड में, यही काम हमने ये जो पर्टिकुलर सर्वर है EGFR PRED इसका नाम है, जो कि इस पर्टिकुलर डेटाबेस को यूज करके बना है। मैं बहुत ज्यादा डिटेल में नहीं जाऊंगा इसके, बट मैं सिर्फ ये दिखाना चाह रहा हूँ इसमें कई, जैसे मैंने कहा 4500 मॉलिक्यूल है, और अगर मैं देखूंगा बहुत छोटी छोटी क्लासेस हैं, लेट अस से यही 4-5 क्लासेस, इसमें इतने सारे मॉलिक्यूल अगर मैं ट्रेडिशनली बताता तो मेरे को कहीं मतलब 100 मॉडल बनाने पड़ जाते। तो मैंने वो सब कुछ नहीं किया, मैंने एक प्रेडिक्शन बेस्ड मॉडल बनाया जो कि ये है। और जैसा कि अगर किसी को इंटरेस्ट हो तो देखे, यहाँ पे सिर्फ इतना देखो कि हमने क्या कहा पेपर में। हमने पेपर में यही कहा कि हमने 3500 मॉलिक्यूल लिए और जिसके अंदर अलग अलग तरह के मॉलिक्यूल हैं, और उसके बेसिस पे हमने एक मशीन लर्निंग बेस्ड मॉडल बनाया। ओके, growth of QSR based model. Definitely it is growing. It's very simple. I don't need to stress upon this now. Okay. मैं सिर्फ इस स्लाइड पे, क्योंकि ये थोड़ा सा वो है, आई डोंट नो पीपल हैव यू बीन हैव बीन टॉट और नॉट, और कितने लोग यहाँ पे हैं बायोइन्फॉर्मेटिक्स वाले, बट समथिंग कॉल्ड स्माइल नोटेशन। मैंने अभी थोड़ी देर पहले कहा था कि स्ट्रक्चर को हम SDF mol2 वगैरह फॉर्मेट में दे देंगे तो कंप्यूटर को समझ में आएगा। तो आप इस स्लाइड से सिर्फ ये समझिए, मैं इसके डिटेल में नहीं जाऊंगा, एंड आई विल नॉट एक्सप्लेन in great details how it is made. I can probably explain one slide only, is कि स्माइल्स नोटेशंस होती है जो कि हम कंप्यूटर में देते हैं, और इसका सबसे बड़ा फायदा, ये बहुत कम स्पेस लेती है कंप्यूटर की। तो आप इस तरह समझ लीजिए, बहुत कम स्पेस लेती है और बहुत सिंपल होती है। तो कंप्यूटर को फॉर एग्जांपल अगर हमें कहना है कि इथेन है, तो जैसे हमें बचपन से सिखाया गया है, वी हैव बीन टॉट फ्रॉम द चाइल्डहुड दैट वी विल राइट CH3 बट कंप्यूटर विल नॉट अंडरस्टैंड ना, सो व्हाट वी डू, वी राइट CC। और ये CC जो होगा, व्हेन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट एलिफेटिक this I would say chains, then we write the C in capital. So if I have to represent the double bond, then I represent by this equal to. Yes, here I have written single bond को हम डैश से करते हैं, बट ये अंडरस्टूड होता है तो इसलिए हम नहीं करते। तो ये आप याद रखिए, ऑल्दो हमको ये रूल्स हैं कुछ कि सिंगल बॉन्ड अगर डिफाइन करना है तो डैश लगाना है, बट हम नहीं करते, तो कंप्यूटर को समझ में आता है। दूसरी बात मैंने कहा कि यहाँ पे कि CH3 the computer also understand what is its valency. So when I write C, it understands, then it means CH3, so it ignores this CH3 and it can understand. So instead of writing CH3 it will ignore this part and write as a result CC. That's what it will do. So here CPR. Okay, फिर कुछ रूल्स हैं कि हम ब्रांचिंग को कैसे लिखते हैं। उसी तरह I will just explain this. बेंजीन फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर मुझे बेंजीन लिखनी है कंप्यूटर को, although there are now known programs, you will not be doing this, but I feel that if there are people from bioinformatics background, then they should know how this is written, and this is very important. Probably the teachers are also teaching, but they should know कि ये स्माइल नोटेशंस कैसे बनती है, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। तो बेसिकली हमने C1, यहाँ पे हमने छोटा c लिखते हैं हम एरोमेटिक के लिए। तो आप लेट अस से फ्रॉम दिस एग्जांपल, तो अगर इफ द रिंग इज एरोमेटिक इन नेचर, देन वी राइट स्मॉल c, एंड फ्रॉम वेयर वी आर कटिंग इट, दैट मींस ओरिजिनेटिंग इट, वी राइट 1, so that we know कि from where it has started originating. So we write C1, C, 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 and then again we write C1, so that we know that this bond is from this, close हो रहा है यहाँ से, तो इसको इस तरह से रिप्रेजेंट करते हैं। Probably due to time restriction, I'm not able to go in depth basically in these subjects. Although I would have loved to go in depth in these subjects, but I'm not going. So basically the message is कि हम स्माइल नोटेशन को करते हैं, यूज करते हैं बताने के लिए कि कंप्यूटर को समझने के लिए। तो हम स्ट्रक्चर को ऐसे नहीं देते, उसको स्माइल की फॉर्म में कन्वर्ट करके उसको तब देते हैं। ओके, व्हाट आर द स्टेप्स फॉर QSR मॉडल डेवलपमेंट। हम प्री प्रोसेसिंग करते हैं, ट्रेन और टेस्ट में डिवाइड करते हैं, फीचर कैलकुलेशन करते हैं, उसके बेसिस पे फीचर सिलेक्शन भी करते हैं। फाइनली आइदर वी डेवलप, एज आई हैव सेड, रिग्रेशन बेस्ड मॉडल और क्लासिफिकेशन बेस्ड मॉडल। फिर हमारा मॉडल बन गया। कोई भी चीज जब बायोइन्फॉर्मेटिक्स में बनाई जाती है तो उसकी वैलिडेशन होती है, प्रूफ करके दिखाओ कि वो सही बनी है। तो दो तरह की वैलिडेशन होती है। इस स्लाइड से आपको सिर्फ इतना याद रखना, इंटरनल वैलिडेशन एंड एक्सटर्नल वैलिडेशन। ठीक है, तो दो तरह की। एक्सटर्नल जो ये हम टेस्ट सेट बनाते हैं, इसके लिए हम करते हैं एक्सटर्नल वैलिडेशन, और ट्रेनिंग के लिए हम यूज करते हैं इंटरनल वैलिडेशन। इसीलिए इसको कहा गया इंटरनल वैलिडेशन, क्योंकि वो ट्रेनिंग सेट जिस पे ट्रेन हो रहा है उसी पे वैलिडेट भी हो रहा होता है, तो उसको हम कहते हैं इंटरनल वैलिडेशन, राइट। और फाइनली जो मैंने पॉइंट कहा बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट इज एप्लीकेबिलिटी डोमेन। कुछ OECD गाइडलाइंस होती हैं, तो अगर आप QSR करते हैं कभी जिंदगी में तो आपको OECD गाइडलाइंस फॉलो करनी चाहिए। तो उसका कहना है कि एप्लीकेबिलिटी डोमेन जो होता है वो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट है, और जो कि मेरी पुरानी स्लाइड से जहाँ पे मैंने कहा 10⁻3 10⁻5 कवरेज की बात जहाँ करी है, और जो मैंने एक एग्जांपल भी दिखाने की आपको कोशिश करी है प्रैक्टिकली जब हमने करा, तो वो बहुत एक क्रिटिकल पॉइंट है। तो ये याद रखने हैं। प्री प्रोसेसिंग, प्री प्रोसेसिंग में आप सिर्फ इतनी बात याद रखिए, कई बार ऐसा होता है जब लोग स्ट्रक्चर्स लेते हैं तो उसमें सॉल्ट्स होते हैं, नहीं होने चाहिए, डुप्लीकेट्स होते हैं, नहीं होने चाहिए, मिक्सचर्स होते हैं, क्योंकि अगर कोई यहाँ केमिस्ट बैठे हैं तो वो बताएंगे जब वो करते हैं तो मिक्सचर्स भी होते हैं सॉल्यूशंस में, तो मिक्सचर्स नहीं होने चाहिए। यानी द स्ट्रक्चर शुड बी क्लीन, बॉन्ड लेंथ सही होनी चाहिए, बॉन्ड एंगल सही होना चाहिए, टॉर्शन एंगल सही होने चाहिए, सारी चीजें उसकी एज पर लिमिट्स होनी चाहिए। तो जो हमारा स्ट्रक्चर होना चाहिए वो क्लीन होना चाहिए, और उसी के बाद हम स्माइल्स जनरेट करें, राइट। सो ये है। दूसरा मैंने लिखा बायोलॉजिकल एक्टिविटी, एक तो इसलिए मैंने दो पार्ट लिखे, दो भाग है यहाँ पे सिर्फ सिंपल समझने के लिए। एक है स्ट्रक्चरल स्टैंडर्डाइजेशन और एक है बायोलॉजिकल एक्टिविटी स्टैंडर्डाइजेशन। स्ट्रक्चरल स्टैंडर्डाइजेशन में ये पार्ट्स आते हैं कि हमें ये सब चीजें करनी चाहिए, कि सॉल्ट्स हटा देने चाहिए, मिक्सचर्स हटा देने चाहिए, डुप्लीकेट नहीं होने चाहिए, और सबके कारण है जो कि मैं यहाँ नहीं बता पाऊंगा इतनी डिटेल्स में आपको लेंथ में। सब कुछ होना चाहिए और अल्टीमेटली क्लीन मॉलिक्यूल्स आना चाहिए। दूसरा बायोलॉजिकल स्टैंडर्डाइजेशन, पता लगता है आप QSR मॉडल बना रहे हैं, कुछ मॉलिक्यूल्स की एक्टिविटी माइक्रोमोलर में है, कुछ की मिलीमोलर में है और कुछ की नैनोमोलर, और आपने ऐसे ले लिया। गलत है, सबकी एक्टिविटी एक यूनिट में होनी चाहिए। ये बहुत क्रिटिकल होता है जब आप 30 मॉलिक्यूल्स या 50 मॉलिक्यूल्स कर रहे थे, तब इतना वो नहीं होता क्योंकि आप देख लेते हैं। बट व्हेन यू रन ऑन हंड्रेड्स ऑफ मॉलिक्यूल लाइक आई हैव सेड इन द प्रीवियस स्लाइड, देन इट बिकम्स वेरी क्रिटिकल, बिकॉज अगर आपके उसमें से 10 मॉलिक्यूल भी हैं, 20 मॉलिक्यूल भी हैं, 100 मॉलिक्यूल भी है जिनकी एक्टिविटी गलत है, तो रिमेंबर गीगो हो जाएगा। तो you have to take care of the biological activity standardization. डुप्लीकेट रिमूवल बहुत सिंपल चीज है, बहुत बहुत क्रिटिकल है। मैं आई थिंक सो आई विल probably touch this slide because I feel this is very important. is होता क्या है कि हमारे पास दो सिमिलर मॉलिक्यूल, और मान लीजिए थ्योरेटिकली एक जने ने कहीं और से एक्टिविटी करी, एक जने ने कहीं और से करी, क्योंकि हम पबकेम पे गए, हमने डेटा उठा लिया। पीपल विल गो टू पबकेम, हम डेटा उठा लिया, उनको पता ही नहीं है अंदर डेटा में क्या है, और वो पता लगता है दो डिफरेंट लैब से आ। आई होप पीपल आर अवेयर ऑफ पबकेम। उन्होंने डेटा उठा लिया एंड दे आर नॉट अवेयर, सो वो दो अलग अलग डिफरेंट लैब्स ने करी है, एंड देयरफॉर इवन इफ द यूनिट इज सेम, पता लगा वो तो एक ने कहा कि जी 10 माइक्रोमोलर एक्टिविटी और एक ने कह दिया 1000 माइक्रोमोलर एक्टिविटी. नाउ दिस इज प्रॉब्लमेटिक. So therefore, agar these type of compounds are there, we do remove these compounds before progressing. Let us skip this part. Simple. Let us come to simples. Division of the training and test set. Basic fundamental. बस आप इस स्लाइड से समझिए. हमारे पास मान लीजिए 100 molecules हैं. तो हमको क्या करना है? What we have to do? We have to take 80 molecules for generating my model, for which is called as training the model. The rest 20 molecules I have to keep aside for testing this. As I've said, external validation will be run on this set. This set is not to be given to my model for my model generation, as if it doesn't exist. Remember this. So what do? I split this data into two parts constituting of 80% and 20%. Once I have that, what I do? I build model from 80%, as I've said, and the rest 20% is used for generating the model. Okay. Okay. This one important. There are two methods for generating this 80-20%. One is called as random. Oh, sorry, there are many methods. I'm sorry, but generally, I'm trying to tell you if there are two methods, unke main advantages or lacunae batane ki koshish kar raha hu. I have 5 bananas in a bucket. I have 5 bananas, 4. I have 4 bananas, 4 oranges, and 4 mangoes. I do random splitting. Natija is all the bananas are on one side, on the which is used for training. Secondly, what I can see, only one apple is here. So what has happened as a result of random splitting? Whenever I will generate a model from this set, first of all, it is not properly designed to predict for this test data set, because it has never learned. It's like चाय आपने बनानी ढंग से सिखाई नहीं है, उसको कह रहे हो चाय बना दो आप. So it has not been able to see enough of apples. It's like telling a child when the child is growing up and you can tell it's apple, it's apple, it's apple. You have to tell him 100 times and then he starts learning on his own. A for apple, A for apple, A for apple. So until as you tell that child many times that this is an apple, so what should have ideally happened? Ideally, these 3 should have gone on this side and this one should have come on this side. So that's what should have happened, but it didn't happen. So this is a problematic situation. So GIGO, always remember GIGO. So whatever you're going to generate out of this will be rubbish. It's no meaning. It has no meaning in practicality, because also it has not been able to see banana. You are not testing whether it is able to recognize the banana. There is no banana in this set. So what we should do? What we call cluster-based splitting. Simple words. I somehow know that these are 4 apples and I pick from these 4 one and put it into my test set. The rest 3 I put into my training set. So only one. If I have 4, out of that 1 I put in a different set. So first I have to do why it is called cluster-based splitting, because I cluster these. So I know that there are at least 4 apples in this. So I know there are 4 bananas. I know 4 oranges are there. Out of that, what I've done, I've put 1 into the test set. So this is the way the training and test set should be generated. That means there should be a uniform distribution of the molecules. That means similar molecules. If there are, for example, I said there are 5 scaffolds with me. So representation of each scaffold should also be there in the test set as is there in the training set. Then only I will be able to do justice with my model in teaching it and with testing it, both the things. Okay, forget about all this. Okay, fine. The next step. Feature calculation and selection. So what do I do now? I've got training and test set. So I've separated this. Forget about even this. Okay. Okay, let's see from this very simple example. There are very different ways of generating descriptors. Why I'm on this slide is these are the easiest descriptors a person like me can understand. And that's why I'm here on this slide. Something called as fingerprints. हमारे हाथों में fingerprints होते हैं. They are unique. So what does this box shows? Let us say इसका X नाम है. Although let us say this descriptor is called as, let us say, max descriptors. So एक खासियत है कि max descriptor अगर हम word use कर देंगे तो यहाँ पे 166 boxes बने होंगे आपके, right? अब ये boxes क्या represent करते हैं? Let's see from this example. It is known that in this box that it checks कि benzene is present or absent in your structure. So is benzene present? No, it is not present. So I put a 0 in it. It checks, do you have a methyl in your structure? It says yes, it is there, definitely there. Rather, there are 3. So it is not worried about how many are there. It just puts. It's like a student is present, virtually present. Yes, he is present. Whether he is listening or not listening is not important. He is present. So he is present. So it's like something like that. So it is present, it is present. How many times he is present? It's not important. For how duration it is present? Not important. He is present. So that's what we are showing in this particular representation. So as I said, what happens? We convert these structures into something called fingerprints. There are many ways of generating these fingerprints. So these are the easiest forms in the form of a binary 0 to 1, which we convert them into fingerprints. So this is called as, just remember, feature generation. So these are the feature. यानी उसकी जितनी भी प्रॉपर्टीज थी, इसका मतलब क्या हो? इसका मतलब इतना ही है कि उस मॉलिक्यूल के अंदर जितनी प्रॉपर्टीज थी वो सारी की सारी हमें इस 0-1 के वजह से पता लग गई. है नहीं है. अगर हम टोपोलॉजिकल प्रॉपर्टीज ले रहे होंगे तो टोपोलॉजी देखेंगे, अगर हम ज्योमेट्रिकल ले लेंगे तो ज्योमेट्रिकल देखेंगे, अगर हम बॉन्ड लेंथ वाली प्रॉपर्टी देख रहे होंगे तो बॉन्ड लेंथ देखेंगे. डिफरेंट तरह की प्रॉपर्टीज, हजारों तरह की प्रॉपर्टीज है. और इसीलिए एक बहुत अच्छा सॉफ्टवेयर है, कम से कम उसका नाम मैं आपको बताना चाहूंगा, वो है पैडल. बिल्कुल फ्री है, आसान है, मजे से यूज करिए, बहुत साइटेशन है, वर्ल्ड ओवर रिकॉग्नाइज्ड है. और इफ आई रिमेम्बर 14,000 डिस्क्रिप्टर्स देता है करीब, अगर मुझे सही याद पड़ता है. और तो मैं एग्जांपल दिखाने वाला था जो मैं टाइम लिमिटेशन की वजह से आपको नहीं दिखा रहा हूं, बट यहाँ पे मैंने स्लाइड में दिखाया हुआ है. आप विंडोज पे इंस्टॉल करिए, सिर्फ इसको डबल क्लिक करिए, मॉलिक्यूल को दे दीजिए, ये आपको डिस्क्रिप्टर सेकंड्स में बता के देते. ओके, I will not get into the details of feature selection. Feature selection का मैं बता देता हूँ क्यों करना जरूरी है. अब मेरे को कोई प्रॉपर्टी बतानी है, यानी मुझे बताना था एक्टिव इनएक्टिव फॉर एग्जांपल. अब मैं उसके लिए मैं इस समय एग्जांपल नहीं सोच पा रहा हूँ, पर मैं एक ही चीज को पूछने के लिए फॉर लेट अस से 1000 बच्चों को बुलाऊं. यानी मैंने कहा 14,000 डिस्क्रिप्टर्स आपने जनरेट कर दिए, यानी मैं एक ही चीज को 14,000 लोगों से पूछूं. इज इट मोर मीनिंगफुल? और इट इज मोर मीनिंगफुल कि मैं 10 जो लेट अस से मैंने किसी की एंट्री चेक करनी है कि वो आया नहीं आया, तो मैं अगर वहां गार्ड्स रहते हैं तो मैं उनसे पूछ लेता हूं कि वो आया है नहीं आया। तो लेट अस से एक मेन गेट है, एक दूसरा गेट है और एक तीसरा गेट है, तो मैं उन तीनों गार्डों से पूछ लेता हूँ कि दैट पर्सन हैज कम और नॉट कम, लेट अस से। तो इफ दे ऑल द थ्री से यस, आई हैव द इंफॉर्मेशन दैट इट इज। सो फीचर सिलेक्शन में भी यही होता है। दैट मीन्स we take the features which are important and rest we remove all the other features because they are not important, they are going to tell me the redundant information, उसकी कोई फायदा नहीं। दूसरी बात, मगर एक चीज सिर्फ पॉइंटर याद रखने के, फीचर्स का कोरिलेशन बायोलॉजिकल एक्टिविटी के साथ होना चाहिए, ये हम एक पॉइंट याद रखते हैं। दे शुड बी हाईली कोरिलेटेड विद द बायोलॉजिकल एक्टिविटी, एक पॉइंट। दूसरा पॉइंट, आपस में रिलेशनशिप नहीं होता, यानी एक गार्ड बहुत दूर बैठता है, दूसरा गार्ड बहुत दूर पड़ता है, तो दूसरे पहले गार्ड को नहीं पता कि दूसरा गार्ड क्या कर रहा है, पहला गार्ड को नहीं पता और दूसरे को नहीं पता पहला, तो आपस में अनरिलेटेड है। यानी जो वो इंफॉर्मेशन देंगे वो एक तरह की यूनिक इंफॉर्मेशन है। तो दो ही पॉइंट सिर्फ फीचर सिलेक्शन में हमें याद रखने होते हैं, वो है कि उनका कोरिलेशन होना चाहिए बायोलॉजिकल एक्टिविटी से, क्योंकि होना ही चाहिए, ये बहुत ऑब्वियस है, क्योंकि वी वांट कि अल्टीमेटली वी हैव टू प्रेडिक्ट द बायोलॉजिकल एक्टिविटी, तो उसके साथ रिलेशनशिप होना चाहिए। मैं अनरिलेटेड चीज से पूछ लूं तो कोई फायदा नहीं है। दूसरा, आपस में कोई रिलेशनशिप नहीं है, और उसके लिए भी बहुत सारे मेथड्स। ओके, नाउ जैसे मैंने कहा रिग्रेशन बेस्ड मेथड्स होते हैं और क्लासिफिकेशन बेस्ड मेथड होते हैं। तो ये सिंपल स्लाइड से मैं आपको सिर्फ इतना बताना चाहूंगा कि QSR मेथड्स जब जनरेट होते हैं तो यहाँ हम देखते हैं, जैसे मैंने कहा सिंपलेस्ट जो होता है MLR होता है, मल्टीपल लीनियर रेग्रेशन। तो y इक्वल टू mx को याद रखें, आपका सारा काम बन जाएगा। लीनियर रिग्रेशन के बेसिस पे हम रिग्रेशन बेस्ड मेथड्स बनाते हैं। क्लासिफिकेशन के बहुत सारे मेथड्स, मैंने 3 ही एग्जांपल दिए हैं, वन इज KNN, नेपेसियन, रैंडम फॉरेस्ट। इसको हम डिस्टेंस बेस्ड मेथड भी कहते हैं, इसको हम जैसे नाम बता रहा है प्रोबेबिलिटी बेस्ड मेथड भी कहते हैं, और ये ट्री बेस्ड, डिसीजन ट्री बेस्ड मेथड। तो बेसिकली अलग अलग तरीके के मेथड्स हैं जो कि अपना काम करते हैं और अल्टीमेटली मॉडल्स बनाते हैं। ठीक है, आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू एक्सप्लेन इन दिस पर्टिकुलर क्लास how what actually linear regression, multiple linear regression means, but एक छोटा सा टेक होम मैसेज, क्योंकि मैंने बहुत सालों में लगा के सीखा और मेरी बहुत इच्छा होती है कि मैं जितने बच्चे हो सके या जितने लोग हो सके उनको जल्दी जल्दी बता सकूं, इस कि ये कि जो सिंपल लीनियर रिग्रेशन होता है वो एक पे डिपेंड है, मतलब बायोलॉजिकल एक्टिविटी सिर्फ एक पे है, जबकि मल्टीपल लीनियर रिग्रेशन जैसे नाम कहता है बहुत सारे एक्स हैं, और यही हम अपने काम में कर रहे हैं। हमारे पास बहुत सारे डिस्क्रिप्टर्स हैं, बहुत सारे, तो हम नॉर्मली MLR यूज करते हैं मॉडल जनरेशन के लिए। I'm not going to go into detail. Okay. Other thing, validation. जैसे मैंने कहा दो तरह के वैलिडेशन मेथड्स होते हैं, इंटरनल वैलिडेशन और एक्सटर्नल वैलिडेशन। इंटरनल वैलिडेशन ट्रेनिंग सेट के लिए यूज होता है, याद रखिए, और एक्सटर्नल वैलिडेशन टेस्ट सेट के लिए यूज होता है। अब ये हमारे कुछ पैरामीटर्स आते हैं, फिर स्टैटिस्टिक्स आगे बीच में। रिग्रेशन बेस्ड मेथड्स के लिए आप मोटा मोटा ये 3 पैरामीटर निकालते हैं, R², Q², प्रेडिक्टेड R², जो कि हमें बताते हैं कि हमारा मॉडल जो डेवलप हुआ है कितना अच्छा है या नहीं है। इट इज अबाउट द क्वालिटी ऑफ द मॉडल। जबकि क्लासिफिकेशन बेस्ड मेथड्स के लिए एक्यूरेसी, बैलेंस्ड एक्यूरेसी, सेंसिटिविटी, स्पेसिसिटी, MCC नाम की, मैथ्यूज कोरिलेशन कोएफिशिएंट नाम की पैरामीटर्स होते हैं जो जनरेट होते हैं और हमें बताते हैं कि क्वालिटी ऑफ द मॉडल कैसी है। ओके, सो लेट्स कम टू ओके, ये स्लाइड जब हम ML बेस्ड मेथड यूज करते हैं, नॉर्मली लोग कहते हैं हमने 5-fold क्रॉस वैलिडेशन मेथड यूज किया। इसका मतलब क्या होता है? इसका मतलब आप इस तरह से समझिए, बहुत सिंपल। हमने अपने डेटा सेट को डिवाइड करा 5 इक्वल पार्ट्स में। As you can see, we have divided the data set into 5 parts, equal parts. Then the first 4 parts is used for training, and the one set which is left is used for testing. And remember, this I am talking about internal checking and not external checking. So I am dividing my training set further into 4 parts every time, and training the model and testing it using the 5th part. In this way, what I do, as the slides are showing, that every time I pick a new testing set. That means first I used this as the testing set and the rest 4 as the training set. Next time I used this as the testing set and the rest 4 as the training set. Then this, then this, and then this. तो हर बारी हमने एक नया टेस्ट सेट लिया और नया ट्रेनिंग सेट लिया. What does this tell? This tells us simply that the model, if the values are coming out good, which I've mentioned in the previous slide, that means the model is good in nature. The quality of the model is good. That means it's not biased model. हमने सिर्फ एक फिटिंग नहीं करी, इसको कहते हैं हमने फिट नहीं करा है मॉडल कि somehow वो एक अच्छी वैल्यू देती है. अगर हमने डेटा बदल दिया तो क्या वो अच्छी वैल्यू देगा? अगर वो दे रहा है इसका मतलब हमारा मॉडल अच्छा है. So this is called as 5-fold. Sometimes people use the word, just should remember, k-fold cross validation. बहुत सिंपल. K is a number. अगर मैं कह दूं 10-fold तो k equal to 10 होगा. तो n-fold भी कहते हैं लोग इसको. Okay. This is important now. ये confusion matrix है, बहुत सिंपल. Again, क्योंकि इसी के बेसिस पे आपके जो मैंने पीछे पैरामीटर्स बताए हैं, सेंसिटिविटी, स्पेसिफिसिटी, एक्यूरेसी, सारे इसी के बेसिस पे आते हैं. सिर्फ इसको समझ लीजिए. यहाँ पे स्लाइड के हिसाब से लिखा है ट्रू पॉजिटिव. ट्रू पॉजिटिव इज वो एक्टिव था और हमने, मेरे मॉडल ने भी उसको एक्टिव बताया, यानी 1-1 था है. ट्रू पॉजिटिव. नेगेटिव, नेगेटिव था और उसको बताया भी इनएक्टिव, यानी वो इनएक्टिव एक्चुअल में था, इसीलिए मैंने वर्ड यहाँ एक्चुअल लिखा है. इनएक्टिव था एक्चुअल में और उसको प्रेडिक्शन सिस्टम ने भी इनएक्टिव बताया. तो ये तो ट्रू केसेस हो गए. ठीक है. फॉल्स पॉजिटिव बड़ा आसान है. जो पॉजिटिव नहीं था यानी इनएक्टिव था, उसको मेरे सिस्टम ने कहा पॉजिटिव है. मैंने जब प्रेडिक्शन करी तो उसको फॉल्स पॉजिटिव यानी नहीं है ये, यानी मेरे प्रेडिक्शन सिस्टम कह रहा है कि है बट वो एक्चुअली में नहीं है. दूसरा फॉल्स, उसी तरह नेगेटिव, यानी है तो वो एक्चुअली में इनएक्टिव, नेगेटिव, बट उसको सिस्टम मेरा बता रहा है इनएक्टिव, सॉरी एक्टिव है और उसको इनएक्टिव बता रहा है. तो इसको हम बेसिकली कहते हैं टीपी, टीएन, एफपी, एफएम. और इनको इस्तेमाल करके आपके ये बड़े सिंपल फॉर्मूला है. आप फॉर्मूले में वैल्यूज डालिए और आपकी एक्यूरेसी, सेंसिटिविटी, स्पेसिफिसिटी, बैलेंस्ड एक्यूरेसी, एमसीसी, ये सारी वैल्यूज आपकी मॉडल की पता लग जाती हैं. एक और चीज, आरओसी कर्व. आरओसी कर्व भी यूज होता है बताने के लिए क्वालिटी ऑफ द मॉडल. बहुत सिंपल. इसको हम यूज करते हैं इस तरह से समझिए कि हम बेसिकली व्हाट वी डू इज वी प्लॉट एट डिफरेंट थ्रेशोल्ड लेवल्स what is the variation in this value and this value, and based on this we generate a line. अगर मैं नेक्स्ट स्लाइड पे जाऊं तो अगर मेरी ये लाइन आ गई तो इसको, इस लाइन को मैंने डिफरेंट थ्रेशोल्ड पे यूज करके, जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल 40%, 80%, 90% एंड 100% पे करके मैंने ये ग्राफ बना लिया. तो इसको कहते हैं रिसीविंग ऑपरेटिंग कर्व, आरओसी कर्व. ये मेरा ROC कर्व बन गया, और इसके अंडर the area which lies under this is called as AUC, area under curve. And the standard is, if the value is, let us say, less than 0.5, then that means my prediction system is not good. It has to be more than 0.5. And the most important point that has to be remembered, the more it is towards on the left side, on the top left side, the more the curve is like this, the better, because definitely the area under the curve will be more. So therefore the AUC value will increase. So therefore what it's telling, my model has better predictive ability. So that's what AUC curve will tell. Forget about this. The last, applicability domain, like I said. So applicable domain, आप इस तरह से समझिए, इसको मैं नेक्स्ट स्लाइड में समझाता हूँ कि हमारे पास दो सेट थे, ट्रेनिंग और टेस्ट. सो from this graph you can see how much the area the training set is covering, right? So now if I know this area and I have an unknown compound, let us say my model is done, I am done, I published my work, and now somebody else wants to use it, right? So what he should be doing? He has an unknown molecule, he is a new molecule. So what the model should do, basically, what it should do is it should check the similarity values of that new molecule with all the molecules that are present in my database, in my model system, to see whether it is nearer to any of them. That means, is it lying within this area or not? If it is, then it can be used for prediction. Else, if it is lying outside the domain, it cannot be used. It's as simple as this. This is called as coverage of the model. And therefore, this is very important. Therefore, when I said that you can use different scaffolds, so अगर आपने किसी ने देखा होगा तो मैंने वहां पे लिखा था enhanced coverage. तो हमारा मोटो ये था कि हम enhanced coverage दें. तो enhanced coverage देने के लिए ही हमने बहुत सारे scaffold लिए थे, और उससे हमारा prediction system बहुत ज़्यादा applicable होता है. I will not go into case studies, but these are some of my own work. And one thing that we have, all the tools are available and people can look and they can use it. I will like to finish and like to thank you. This is my lab, and these are my students, Agnish and Sandeep, who have prepared these wonderful slides for me to discuss with you people and share it with you. So thanks for listening to me. And I hope, the last thing, that I hope that people have learned at least one or two. Not, I don't wish that they must have learned a lot of things, but at least new terminologies, if they have heard, that will serve. Thanks.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. We'll just take 2-3 questions, and then because the next speaker for the next session had joined, so I'll just ask the participants if you want to ask any question. One question is there in the chat box. I'll just read it. So
supervised is better. I will answer that. Supervised in my way is better. I feel I go for supervised.
Okay, anyone wants to ask, you can unmute
and
yourself.
One person has written about ED50. Basically, it's related to toxicity, I assume. So,
okay, sir.
Lethal dose, I think so. It's called lethal dose. So when people are testing the do toxicity testing, then they get into this. Then they calculate, instead of IC50, they calculate ED50.
Okay, sir. Anyone wants to ask any question? You can unmute yourself. If there is no question, then we can proceed. Okay, sir. Abhinav sir, I request you to please extend vote of thanks to sir.
Thank you, Subhash sir.
So your voice is not clear at all.
Dr. Roma,
You
that's
just
Hello.
keep your camera off, sir. It's not clear.
Hello, Dr. Kumar. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Also, thank you, Subhash sir, for such a presentation about research and management of life formatting. That a lot. Your ML study, your probability, everything was very up to the mark. I think the participants have presentation right. So thank you once again sir, from the to come.
Okay, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, sir.
Roma, thank
It
you.
was and it was a really it was a really great session on QSAR, and you had briefed us about all the work which you have done in your lab. And as you told in the initial timing of this session, that you will be helping many of us in our work. So
Definitely.
definitely, I will also personally approach you, because I'm also doing work, because I'm also a bioinformatician. So
I
I
know.
would also like like to work in some areas where you can just help me, and hopefully I think many of the participants will also approach you. So I'll be sharing your
My
contact
email
details.
ID is given. They can
Exactly,
approach me.
exactly.
So,
Okay,
but thank you. And I would like to close session from my side because I know the next speaker is leaving. And sorry for being late, but I wanted to pour in whatever experiences I have, give whatever I have.
No,
I feel it's a
definitely,
knowledge
sir.
transfer program.
And
So I'm sorry,
I
but
would,
sorry to all the
no,
participants
no,
for not.
sir, definitely we would
I'm
like you
sorry
to
to them.
join
I'm
for
really
more
sorry.
sessions, because we do have sessions for a faculty development program, as well as for students also. So I
Thank
would like you to join us further in maybe this semester or next year, whenever you are free, to take a few more sessions for this topic USAR, or all the work which you have done in your lab.
thank you.
Thank you once again, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so we'll just take a break of 4 or 5 minutes, and then we can just start the session. So I'm not ending the meeting. I'll just